wasn't a Decimone production, I don't know what was. It was loud, a little bit long, a lot of crying, and we're running late. I want to thank you all for coming. Hopefully I can get through this. Bear with me. Somebody looking for Lake Smith last night told me the famous Brady Bunch, for those of you who grew up in the 70s, advice when you're giving a speech to imagine everybody in their underwear. And I thought, in 2022, I think that's a crime. And also, my father insisted that I congratulate the pool winner. I was not struck by lightning upon entering the church, as many of you thought. My sister Pia wrote a beautiful obituary, so I don't want to do the same thing here. She was a writer much like my father. You know, if you get a chance, it's on Facebook. It'll be on the website at Caramenico for a while, and you can find out his history. I just wanted to briefly describe him. He was a force of nature. Physics teaches us that a force is an influence that can cause or change the motion of an object. Gravity is one of the four fundamental forces of the universe. And just like gravity, we are all attracted here to my father's life, to celebrate his life as he enters into the promised land. He was passionate about life. And in passion, we forget sometimes emotions go both ways. Sometimes he could be grumpy. Sometimes he could be curmudgeonly. I always remember my friends were afraid to call the house because he would answer the phone. Who is that guy? Who do you think it is? It's my dad. I remember, some of you will remember when he had his aneurysm in '94, Dr. Sutter at Lankenau pulled me aside and said, I don't know if he's going to make it. It's that serious of an operation. And I remember talking to somebody who said, don't worry, your dad will be fine. He's too ornery to die. And he didn't. He lived another 28 years. He also lived his life. My father loved opera, and he was passionate. And he lived his life like an opera a lot. If you're an opera fan, you'll know what I mean. But to understand him is to understand what he grew up with, where he was from. He was born in fascist Italy, and that crucible helped to form his life and his loves. His first love was his mother and his late brother Phil. He loved Falsecchese and Italian culture. He loved his adopted homeland. He moved here in '46. In '46, he lost his mother, and it was through his love of music, with the Verdi Band especially, the Holy Sacred Choir, that he was able to stay grounded and move on with his life. Eventually falling in love with his brother, Frank, and eventually his sisters, Lillian and Marianne. He loved his high school, West Catholic. He loved his corps. He joined the corps in '54, I think. And he loved music, the Verdi Band, my Uncle Nick. But his greatest love was my mother. He loved my mother when he was 10, as they grew up together. He was there to comfort her when in 1943, 2 Nazi soldiers shot her dog, her beloved Brico, as she was walking him down the street. He helped her deal with her father. My grandfather, who lived in Italy, was in the U.S. Army in 1918, So we had to hide for a few months in the caves below the town because he was an American citizen. He had to hide from the Germans. So my father helped him through that, and he moved here in '46, and he was heartbroken at that loss, but never forgot it. And my Uncle Nick went to Canada to see my aunts, and the first thing he did was want to find out what my mother, if she was still available. And in the mid-50s, he started, there was no telephones that you could easily call people, but he wrote her, and they ended up getting married in '46. He loved his children. The other night, I was thinking about this. The other night, Andy Griffin came on, and somebody tells Aunt B, children should be seen but not heard, which is something that I've heard many times when I was a kid, and something completely foreign to me as an Italian, because kids are always heard. No one ever told us to keep quiet. So our dinner table was kind of like what you saw here. Lots of noise, lots of arguments, but always ended with love. My father was unchanging in those things that he loved. My mother, my brother, I think he's reunited with them. And I said this to somebody earlier. I know the first thing he's going to ask my mother when he sees her. He's going to ask her, where did you put my keys? I haven't been able to find them. And then the second thing he's going to ask is, what's for dinner? On behalf of the family, I want to thank you for coming. I also want to thank the VA. The last 2 months were very difficult, and it was made so much easier by the service that he got from the VA. I cannot tell you enough. I cannot sing their praises enough. It wasn't just going to a hospital. It was being treated like with dignity. I was completely surprised. I hear horror stories about the VA, and we were all nervous about it. And my father can be a curmudgeon. When he died, that day, which Ann will tell you, nurses and doctors and staff started to come in to say goodbye to him. They fell in love with him, and he fell in love with them. And I also want to thank Caramenico, because they're some of my favorite people. All right. Goodbye, Pop. If you think about it, another Super Bowl would be nice. But only if you're not too busy.